The United States?
I'll say.
Even though we had an entire season involving aliens, time traveling, and rogue AI, honestly nothing could have prepared me for Kurt Wagner's anticlimactic death by the end of X-Men 97, Season 2. The finale definitely had a short runtime, but it packed up just so much in 25 minutes and still managed to give us one of the best season endings in a Marvel TV show. The entire season had been building towards that final confrontation between the time-traveling tyrant we know as Apocalypse and the X-Men. And it goes without saying that watching Rogue quell the conflict with such ease after all that intense clash was truly satisfying. But even though all seemed to be right in the end, the final end credits rolled after the dust of the battle settled, and that is what left us with the big questions regarding what is in store for our favorite team of mutants in Season 3. As the season finale teases new conflicts, it seems like we might not only see the return of an alluring new shape-shifting villain, but also see the X-Men clash with a recurring group of fan-favorite villains who have shockingly not made their appearance in this sequel show before. So without wasting another moment, let's do a quick breakdown of the post-credit scene before we jump into discussing what it really means for the ever-darkening landscape of X-Men 97 Season 3. What does the post-credits scene of X-Men Season 2 finale mean? So, by the end of X-Men 97 Season 2, we saw how Valerie Cooper, the leader of X-Factor, commanded her posse of mutants to join Cable and his X-Force team in order to kill Gambit, aka Remy LeBeau, before Apocalypse even tries to take over his body. Of course, Jean Grey and Scott Summers did their best to reason with their son, but Cable was convinced that it was his destiny to end Apocalypse, even if it came at the cost of Gambit's life. Thinking like the soldier that he is, Cable barely flinched before taking a direct shot at Remy with his gun and blowing him off. Initially, everyone believed Gambit had met his end, but of course nothing is that easy in the mutant world, is it? The mission soon turned out to be an absolute disaster as Gambit's death ended up unleashing Apocalypse, who had now fully taken control of Remy's body. It really did seem like the end for the world when Apocalypse ended up turning everyone into his horsemen for a brief second, as Professor Charles Xavier watched helplessly. Luckily, Rogue had a major power upgrade, all thanks to Eson, and then ended up saving everyone, including Gambit, but not before imprisoning the essence or the soul of Apocalypse within a gem. That too with the help of the same Celestial responsible for turning Ensaba Nur into Apocalypse. Of course, all power comes at a cost, and so Rogue agreed to sacrifice her own life to save that of Gambit. But after she left, Nightcrawler went in to crack a new deal with Eson. He had notably offered his life as a sacrifice, believing that it would allow the X-Men, including Rogue and Gambit, a chance at a new life. He had full faith in his X-Men family to strive for a better future in the light of honoring his sacrifice. And he was right to some extent, as Season 2 did end on somewhat of a happy note. I mean, yes, the shiny new headquarters that Professor Charles Xavier built for his X-Corps was fully obliterated, but on the brighter side, Apocalypse was now inside a gemstone possessed by Cable. Plus, Rogue and Gambit are now finally getting their chance to live something close to a happy ending. But as the post-credits scene proved, the peaceful lives that our X-Men are living at the moment will surely be very short-lived. So the scene opens with a shot of Valerie Cooper sitting inside her Washington, D.C. office, working late while listening to a TV broadcast that just announced Graydon Creed, the virulently anti-mutant founder of the Friends of Humanity, being elected as the new president of the United States after replacing Robert Kelly, who was somewhat sympathetic towards mutant kind. For those who could not catch it, Graydon Creed is the same guy who was put on trial by Exodus and the Acolytes in the Savage Land in one of the previous episodes. Now, as this plays out, Cooper is going through a mutant threat assessment file on Mystique, and right before we can get a proper glimpse at all the Easter eggs that the single page has to offer, the door opens and the real Valerie Cooper walks in. As it turns out, the woman we saw sitting at Cooper's desk was actually Mystique, who was rifling through her files. The scene ends with the shape-shifting mutant shooting Cooper and killing her right on the spot. Having said that, let's circle back to discuss what we saw on Mystique's heavily redacted file, as it was jam-packed with Easter eggs. Firstly, it lists her 3 children, Graydon Creed, Kurt Wagner, and Anne-Marie Darkholm, aka Rogue. The file logged her primary alias as Raven, but also included other names like Randall C., Rebecca R., Jennifer D., and Jennifer L. Now, these names are actually a witty wink to all the actresses who have voiced or played Mystique's character over time, be it Randall Carpenter and Jennifer Dale in the animated series, or Rebecca Romaine and Jennifer Lawrence in the X-Men films within the Fox universe. Not just that, the file also has mugshots of her known associates, and while it is difficult to make out their faces from the blurry image, this lineup seems to be including Magneto, Blob, Toad, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch. It also reveals that Mystique is set to attack the United States, which is later confirmed by the shapeshifter herself. From the looks of it, it seems like Season 3 will witness Mystique leading the Brotherhood of Mutants to fight enemies of mutant kind and the X-Men. But then Apocalypse ended up killing Magneto at the beginning of Season 2, so I wonder how the show will handle that arc. Given that Apocalypse appeared in the final post-credits scene for Season 1, and then became the next season's overarching big shot antagonist, I think it is safe to assume the same in Mystique's case, which means she will be a major villain in Season 3. The mutant shapeshifter has already played the role of a rather important antagonist in the OG X-Men, the animated series, and we really hated how X-Men 97 had her sitting out until now. Given that she did end up killing Cooper, it seems like there is a subtle implication that Mystique might impersonate the government liaison in Season 3. Given the kind of power Cooper holds, we know that this self-serving shapeshifter can inflict a significant amount of damage from such a position of power. Moreover, there is also Graydon Creed becoming an imminent danger for the X-Men and the rest of the mutant kind, because even if the situation was pretty bad, at least the mutants had a reasonably sympathetic ear with Robert Kelly in the White House. But now Kelly has been replaced by this anti-mutant firebrand, who is sure to stir up a new wave of hatred and fear by probably reviving the Sentinels program. On another side note, I wonder in which year the next season will be set in, especially because there was no US presidential election in 1997, which means that there is a possibility that the show is actually set in 1996. Or maybe more time has passed than we realized, and that would mean that the show would already be out of the 90s and probably set in the year 2000. So far, it seems pretty clear that Graydon Creed, Mystique, and the Brotherhood of Mutants will be the primary villains of X-Men 97 Season 3, but even then I expect to see plenty of other bad guys. In case you do not remember, Season 1 had focused on the threat of Bastion and the Sentinels, but still managed to devote some of its runtime to Mr. Sinister, Adversary, and Mojo. Meanwhile, in Season 2, Apocalypse dominated most episodes, but the show still managed to introduce the Brood, Exodus, and Danger. Plus, the X-Men have such a rich collection of villains to choose from that there is plenty of room for one-time antagonists served with the side of a season-long threat. What does this mean for Season 3? So, X-Men 97 Season 3 is definitely happening because, according to the news we received from that panel at San Diego Comic-Con, rumors are that the writers and animators are hard at work on both Season 3 and 4. In fact, the executive producer Brad Winderbaum is hopeful that we will be seeing almost 10 seasons of the animated sequel show before it comes to an end, which is both exciting and insane. As it turns out, X-Men 97 Season 3 is already in the final stage of animation at the moment, while Season 4 is in the animatic stage, which means the next season will come anytime soon in 2027, and we do not have to wait multiple years for each season anymore. The same panel also provided a first look at the next season by showing the mutant-hunting robot Sentinels painted with an American flag design and fighting members of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants that include Pyro, Avalanche, the Blob, and Toad. The classic villains are also joined by Surge, who was a member of the X-Men introduced in the 2000s. I think this new fleet of patriotic-themed Sentinels are a courtesy of the new Creed administration. Well, based on that clip, it seems we can expect Mystique to factor into the conflict from multiple angles, both in her role as a leader of the Brotherhood and her secret role impersonating the late Dr. Cooper. Moreover, I have no doubts that this season will also dig deeper into the twisted family dynamic involving Mystique, Sabretooth, Rogue, and Graydon Creed. Apart from that, there are also other plot threads that have also been seeded. In case you forgot, Season 2 had introduced the Purifiers, who are a paramilitary group led by Reverend William Stryker, who believe they are engaged in a holy war against mutant kind. In the comics, Stryker gets help from Nimrod, who is a time-traveling sentinel, and then attacks the Xavier Institute, leading to the death of dozens of students. Now, Surge was a big part of that fight against Nimrod and the Purifiers, which is probably why she is joining the show. Not just that arc also included the resurrection of Bastion, who was the main villain of X-Men 97 Season 1. Having said that, the Purifiers are not the only anti-mutant fanatics the X-Men will be facing, because, like I said, the main catalyst here seems to be Graydon Creed becoming the elected president of the United States. Sadly, the mutants of the world are at the mercy of the abuse that Creed underwent during his childhood. Given he was the son of Sabretooth and Mystique, Creed was still born with no mutant power. Moreover, as a child, Mystique abandoned him and Sabretooth abused him, so Creed grew up to hate all mutants, which is why the patriotically painted Sentinels seem to be his handiwork. On another note, since Magneto was killed this season by Apocalypse, Mystique is surely leading the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants now. Her involvement could also be setting the stage for another classic X-Men storyline, which is Days of Future Past. In the original 1981 comic by Chris Claremont and John Byrne, Mystique and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants assassinate Senator Robert Kelly and Charles Xavier. Their actions then fuel a massive wave of anti-mutant fear, before eventually leading to the creation of the Sentinels and a bleak future where mutants are hunted down and forced into internment camps. The storyline was famously adapted in Bryan Singer's 2014 film, and had already been explored in X-Men the Animated Series. But since X-Men 97 continues directly from that animated series, the new season has a perfect opportunity to revisit Days of Future Past, while putting its own spin on the story and incorporating ideas from more recent X-Men comics. Either way, if we cannot surely predict what's to come, I think we are going to see a solid mother-son clash, where Mystique and the Brotherhood of Mutants will end up being committed to terrorizing the United States with a guerrilla warfare campaign, especially with Creed now at the helm of the Western world's most powerful nation. It will surely be interesting then to see how the X-Men approach tackling the Brotherhood and, by proxy, defending democracy while a staunch anti-mutant US president tries to eviscerate their kind. Moreover, I wonder if the X-Men will continue to operate under their X-Corp rebrand or go back to being the X-Men. Plus, I wonder how they will learn to coexist alongside other mutant groups like the government-funded X-Factor and Cable-led X-Force. Do you think we can expect to see these three teams butt their heads together again over how to handle threats against their kind and humanity as a whole? I mean, a massive team-up will surely be iconic, right? Season 3 might be setting us up for an epic clash between the mother and the son duo. The Season 2 finale's post-credits scene quietly lays the groundwork for a very personal conflict in Season 3, which is a full-on clash between Mystique and her own son, Graydon Creed. After President Robert Kelly concedes the election, Graydon appears poised to take the presidency, giving the anti-mutant extremist a level of political power that could put the X-Men in serious danger. But the bigger twist comes when Mystique is revealed to have taken Val Cooper's place by killing her and assuming her identity. That immediately puts Mystique in a position to get close to the political establishment, and potentially to her son. What makes this especially interesting is how closely it echoes one of Graydon's strangest comic book stories. So, in X-Factor issue number 130, Graydon is assassinated during a presidential campaign speech, with Mystique initially appearing to be the obvious culprit. She is actually arrested before the shooting and even insists that she was simply trying to protect Graydon rather than killing him. However, the truth of the matter is revealed years later in X-Men Forever miniseries, and it truly is far more complicated, as here we see a future version of Mystique taking control of her younger body and activating the weapon that kills Graydon by going back in time, thus creating a bizarre time travel paradox. Apparently, Graydon's Friends of Humanity had targeted Trevor Chase, who was the grandson of Mystique's lover, Destiny, thus pushing the mutant shapeshifter toward the decision to kill her own son. But despite being dead, Creed was later resurrected using the techno-organic virus, and surprisingly, that worked. Having said that, X-Men 97 clearly does not have to copy that storyline beat for beat, especially because Graydon has now survived long enough to potentially become president. Instead, the show could be taking the emotional core of the comic with the idea of Mystique being forced into conflict with her son, and then turn it into something much bigger. Graydon's rise could give Mystique a reason to infiltrate his administration, either to stop him from unleashing a new wave of anti-mutant oppression, or because she knows exactly how dangerous he could become. That is what makes the finale's final reveal more than just a surprising twist, as it positions Mystique on a collision course with Graydon, while borrowing one of the most memorable mother-son conflicts from X-Men comics. It will be heartbreaking to see that Mystique may have to decide whether killing her son is the only way to stop a president who could unleash a new generation of Sentinels against mutant kind. The stakes are even higher because Graydon's death could actually turn him into a martyr and give his supporters an excuse for an even more brutal crackdown. Of course, there is no official confirmation that X-Men 97 will recreate the comic assassination, but the parallels are now far too specific to ignore. Marvel has effectively placed the mother inside Graydon's government, as she is shapeshifting into Valerie Cooper, while placing the son at its head, thus making a confrontation between Mystique and Graydon one of the most natural directions for Season 3 to take. But that is just my 2 cents. What do you guys think? Let us know about your thoughts and theories in the comment box below.